first sheet that I have up on the screen, assessment grieving exercise. This is for personal to do in your spare time. It says grieving exercise. Let me kind of explain. This is all from a book that H. Norman Wright wrote, and it included a bunch of cases and dialogues and things that he experienced a time of multiple loss in a very short period of time. And so he put this all together to help people like us who are trying to help people. And as I was reading the book and reading over the cases, I still couldn't get it, So it came to me that it would be a perfect exercise for all of us, because just like going over the stuff that Karen taught these last 2 classes on life coaching, the practice, it made it much more solid in my mind, but also I found that I was able to implement it. Whereas just reading it, it's just really theory. And that was what really struck me about the, she had a slide that said, learn, apply, and practice, or something like that. That you study it, and you need to practice it. So I thought this would be very helpful for all of us in the chaplaincy group. And basically it was a book dealing mostly with grief, but grief is, we lose things. It isn't just death grieving. So this first sheet, assessment grieving exercise, is just questions to ask yourself in your spare time. This isn't something we're going to go over today, but I said there would be case studies, there would be dialogues, there would be handouts for you in this next 4 classes, and there would be sheets that you could give to your clients or your friends that you're dealing with. So this one's basically to help you to understand. The first question, number 1, says, what was your first encounter with death or with loss? Because for us to help evaluate and minister to people who have lost something or experienced crisis, it's good for us to evaluate what we've actually experienced. Okay, so why does this not want to go down? All right. So that's basically for you. Okay. Now this first one is case number 1. We're going to read and we're going to talk about it together. And then H. Norman Wright wrote some questions for us, which you can see down there on the screen. It says questions. Don't look at the questions ahead of time. Case number 1. And then he gave us his response, because this was a setting, an intervention, a ministry that he actually did. So these are factual. They're not made up things, and this is how he responded, and this is to help us. So let's follow along together. The parents and 3 siblings of a 23-year-old woman come in for grief counseling. All are neat in appearance, well-dressed, and fairly quiet. The parents are first to speak about their daughter. They begin with a description that characterizes her as a quality young woman, their firstborn. She was gifted in every area of her life and had a bright future ahead of her. The parents go into great detail about her abilities and accomplishments, stopping every now and then because of their inability to talk. Often, all 5 members are in tears. 2 weeks prior to this meeting, the daughter, carrying her 7-month-old unborn child, and her mother-in-law were driving on a freeway when a truck struck and killed all of them. Since that time, every member of this family has been struggling. So first thing I want to ask, are there any comments or things that you noticed right off the bat that you would like to share about this scenario? No?
Something to share?
Yeah, is there something that strikes you, first of all, an impression that this case makes on you?
This is going to sound kind of weird, but to me, well, there's obviously several parts, but the part where it says they're well-dressed, like that they're still doing their daily activities. Like
their hygiene, they're keeping their stuff up. Okay.
Dressing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else have
How are
any?
things happening at home and how are you functioning? Can I do anything to help you in the home?
Okay. All right, so you were off, okay.
The other thing,
Go ahead.
the other thing is when they're talking, it says, he went into great details about, because this is one who died, right?
Yeah,
Right.
the girl died.
It said detail about her abilities and accomplishments. And that's all they're talking about.
A great future ahead of her.
Okay. Any other things, anybody about that? Let's stop, because this is something that I noticed. And I wanna, does anybody have anything that comes out to you about what Elise just said? About her accomplishments?
Do you want me to add to that?
No, I'm just asking before I add anything.
Well, in general, it happens when people die, is that they only talk about, like, is that what you're talking
The
about?
good stuff.
Well, it's
That's
your,
something that I noticed is like all of a sudden, like even if you thought the person was a half semi-good person, like all of a sudden they seemed like this great person after they
All the
died.
good stuff, yeah.
All this good stuff.
okay.
High on a pedestal.
So there is one thing that I noticed about the parents talking and the children, well, who are all younger. One of the things is it seemed to me like maybe she was a favorite, somebody that, the parents were always bringing up,
Around.
right, bringing up to maybe the firstborn. I mean, well, firstborns aren't always exemplary, right? But it seemed to me that they were talking about, all the wonderful things about this daughter. It doesn't tell her name. We can call her Anne or whatever. And that maybe there might be some resentment of her brothers or sisters because they're always bragging on her. That's something that occurred to me, which, okay. And then, is there anything, Kathy, you said something that you were noticing something?
That they put her on a pedestal.
That could have put her on a pedestal, which it could be because,
Right.
like what you just said, is that
Positive
when
vibes.
they're positive, when somebody dies, if there's good feelings, you don't normally come off with all the crummy things they've ever done. It's always, you miss a person and there's a lot of remorse.
Right.
Another thing I noticed is that the husband wasn't there.
Oh, yeah.
That the husband wasn't there.
Well, you know what I noticed?
No, what? Go ahead.
Can you hear me, Trish?
Yeah, everybody can hear you.
Okay. It's only 2 weeks since his daughter died. I mean, she's a young woman and she's carrying their grandbaby and everything. And it seems they must have been in absolute agony to seek help 2 weeks after the death, this tragic death occurred. And to me, the husband not being there makes sense to me because it's only 2 weeks, He may not even be able to speak to anybody at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's a possibility. The reason I noticed that the husband wasn't there, I was thinking, is there some type of alienation between the in-laws and the husband? Which may or may not be
And I
so.
was putting them at the service, man.
Mhm.
The service.
Okay, so now we've
You
got,
have to realize that she lost. I mean, wait a minute. Let's go. The husband that's not there, he lost his mother and his unborn child and his wife.
yes.
right.
He lost three
Yep.
people
Yep.
in one thing. So, whoever that said about the 2 weeks, it is kind of early to be going to grief counseling because they haven't even absorbed all of what happened yet.
Right, they haven't even come out of the shock and maybe
Right.
denial. Okay,
And
So
then
that-
every member is going to. It says that every member of the family is struggling. So, every person has grief differently. So, to come into grief counseling as a group the first time, I guess that the therapist would break it down and say, okay, what is your sense of grief, or how are you grieving? Then, who's at what step now in the grief process. So.
Okay. All right. So let's look at the questions then. So we've got our initial observations, all of us. Okay. And you can refer back to your sheets. All right. So what the author asks us is, how would you begin this counseling session? Okay. Henry already talked about, is there anything I can do? Whatever. And describe with your exact words. So when you're saying this, try to say it like you're talking to me. I'm the mom, I'm the brother or the sister or whatever. Does anybody want to take a shot? How would you begin this counseling session?
I don't know, I guess. Well,
Okay.
maybe you want to recognize the pain these people are in. I mean, before even starting, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a huge burden.
Okay.
And I can imagine that kind of pain.
So you're saying empathize. Show
Yeah, I would.
understanding for the, I can't imagine. Well, the first thing I would do is I would introduce myself to each member of the group, because somebody initiated the conversation, the contact with me. So they were familiar with me, but I would introduce myself. Hi, I'm Trish, and I would address each member of the group and get their names, first of all, and also convey my condolences. Okay? Okay, any other thoughts?
Well, from the coaching background, or even / counseling, I wouldn't even say coaching. I would say, I think somebody already said it. What can I do for you? Because each person is going to have a different need. And you're right, Trish. I was going to say what you said. I just let you say it, that you would introduce yourself and then display your condolences, and then ask, because each person may be there for something different. They're all in grief, but each
Right.
person may be at a different stage. So I would definitely start off the session by saying, how can I help you today? What can I do for you? They already said that.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments before we go on to number 2? Okay, so now whenever you have a contact, there needs to be an end goal, right? So what is your goal in the initial session?
I think it would be just to make people feel comfortable initially, because the thing is that in the beginning, you're always going to build, right? Like in the beginning of a session, a first time session, depending on the person, different personalities, they might spill it all out, but most people have to warm up, so I'd say just keeping it, doing things like what you were talking about, because just what you guys have referred to, that will take a while. I mean, there's
5 people.
5 people. So it's going to take a while. So just getting that comfortability going.
Okay, so one of your initial goals is to develop a rapport with the people and make them feel comfortable.
And everyone knows that you're there to help each individual.
Okay, and address to each individual that you're there for each one of them.
Right.
Would they also, just kind of random, and I guess Catherine might know this actually, but would they typically do just family therapy, or would they also do separate therapy? Just a side note question.
I think you would do it. Well, I think actually, if I remember, he addresses that there might be a group thing, but it would also be appropriate to address people, to make arrangements to deal with each individual as they were ready, because some people might just be there and they're just they're just kind of there. But it isn't a thing to be able to minister and support each part of the group, okay? Any other goals?
I mean, could you, also express that, the feelings that they're having is a normal feeling that they were having? I mean, would that be too cold or callous to say something like that?
No, I think it's always appropriate at some point to normalize the fact that what your responses are, because a lot of times we think I'm the only one, or this is bad because I feel like this, or it might come out like I mentioned because the youngest one might feel that the oldest one was always the example, and they might have some inner resentment even
Right.
though they had a relationship and stuff. So we definitely want to normalize their reactions.
And also, I think that it'd be important that it's kind of stated or whatever that everyone does grieve differently, because I think that a lot of times there can be, if one person's very expressive and somebody else isn't, then there can be like a conflict that why aren't you feeling the way I'm feeling? And everybody does it differently.
Okay. So then also to kind of build an acceptance for this, how everybody else is reacting. All right. So number 3, go ahead. You were going to say something? Oh, I thought somebody was starting to talk. Okay, so number 3, what would you say or ask to engage these 3 siblings?
Trish, this is Karen. What I would do is try to ask them, let's see, how would I put it? What were your best moments with your sister? I would kind of bring because it's going to be a solemn affair. And so I would say, well, tell me what are your best memories of your sister? Mm-hmm. So to get them to engage in that first.
Okay, I was kind of thinking something similar. Is there anybody else that has a comment about that before I go into what Karen was saying?
I guess I would ask each one of them what was their favorite memory, not just all 3 together, but engage each one individually.
Yeah, right.
I think that particular, that's pretty much that was probably the perfect answer, Julie. I mean, it was kind of like similar to what Karen was saying, but it's like.
Oh, I didn't mean to ask them. I would say each person, what is their memory? I wouldn't ask them all together. I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
Yeah, well, I kind of figured that. And I would have said something about, so tell me about your sister. I would address a person by name, right, and tell me about your sister or whatever. And I would ask each person. Okay, so we kind of we're all on a pretty similar page on that. Okay, number 4 is, what would you want the entire family to take away from this session in a tangible way? I know, it's kind of like, how can you, when they're saying it's not really touchable, but with a perceived way, let's use a perceived way, in an understood way. Any ideas or thoughts?
And I guess just that it's okay where they're at in their grief. Like,
Okay, so you're talking about acceptance.
you're not going to solve anything in the first, necessarily, in the first encounter with them. So just kind of like, Henry was saying, with normalizing and letting them know that it is different, that we all have different ways of dealing with things, that the different grief steps come and go. 1 minute you might totally realize that they're gone, and the next second you're angry, and the next second, no, they're not gone. And that's normal.
Okay, so some of the that there's different phases of grief, that it's not all the same, that we talked about making them feel like they're not aliens in their responses. I think for me, it's always that I'm there to individually support them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And whatever they are all individually going through, at this point in time, right here, right now, is okay. Because we all have to be okay
Right,
instead of regretting negative things.
okay, that's it.
Make sure they all understand that it's okay how you feel.
Right, because even if they're acting out, if they're,
Right. It's okay, that's their way of expressing their.
well, so your acceptance, I
Everybody
think.
handles grief in a
Right.
different manner.
I mean, it's not okay if they're responding by drinking, okay?
Oh,
and-
but we're in a session of talking, right? So we would be, right?
Right, but I mean, it might come out at that time, so we don't.
That's a good point. You could kind of like, maybe give suggestions depending on how much time you have of like healthy coping strategies. Just like, I mean, I don't know how much you would actually be able to get into in the first session,
Right,
but like those healthy
Yeah,
coping
right,
strategies.
okay. Another thing might be that it's going to affect their family dynamics, so it doesn't say if they're all living at home except for the daughter, but it's going to affect them as a family unit, that they have an individual loss, but it's going to affect them as a family, I think, okay? So based on the information in the case study description, we've already talked about this, I think, identify all the possible grievers. So you can make notes on your paper. So who do we have as a griever?
Parents,
So the
siblings,
parents.
The parents, the siblings,
the husband,
the husband.
And the children.
Okay, so then there's also the father-in-law, the driver of the truck, and any kind of people they've interacted with at that initial, point of tragedy, I think. Anyone else we can think of?
friends.
Friends, yeah, we forget about friends. All
I mean,
right,
they can be like coworkers.
some coworkers perhaps, any mentors or mentees, any that they were involved with in a team or, okay,
Well, if the siblings were still in school, any school staff.
okay. Yep, you would know that. Okay. So what are the factors that contribute to this loss being a complicated grieving process? This is kind of a complicated question.
Well, first of all, the age. Second of all, the fact that she was pregnant.
Okay.
Right?
Third of all, the fact that it wasn't like a natural, quote unquote, natural cause, that it was somebody else inflicted.
Okay.
And 3 generations.
Right.
And then time.
Right.
And family dynamics.
So there's an interaction with the son of the mom, the husband, and his family.
Right.
And his family. Okay. Okay, let's see what our, okay, let's go look at the case study responses, okay? And this is kind of what he would do, and I think that you guys helped me in your evaluations try to concretize how I would react if I was in the thing, because just reading it in my head, it's like, okay, with you don't, it was like, oh, it kind of went, ah. All right, so after greeting each person, the author would validate the fact that they have experienced a great loss. If not known, he would ask the name of the daughter, as well as her mother-in-law's, and whenever reference was made to either person, he would use her name rather than refer to either person in a general way. Okay, so that is making everybody human and important, right?
Right.
One of the first questions to ask is, tell me about the daughter, and then ask each member of the family to respond. Okay, which we all get gold stars on our forehead. and then ask each member of the family to respond. Too often, children, neglected grievers, are left out of the interaction. And I just want to say that when my daughter died, I was so involved in what I was going through. I mean, I was more conscious of my husband that I really I wasn't able to, I didn't even think to try to extend myself or how I could help my children, my other children that were left. So I always feel bad about that.
I think what you don't realize though is that you did. You just don't remember.
Okay. Well, I wasn't conscious of it, but anyway.
But she did.
I just
Do
always.
you remember you sleeping in my bed?
You told me that, but I don't remember.
I'll see. See, she doesn't remember.
Okay. Anyway, so I think that's something that by my life experience made a big impression of children being maybe not included or not recognized. Other. Okay. So too often children, neglected grievers, are left out of the interaction. After each person has responded, the next question is, would you describe for me what the last 2 weeks have been like? Which I think we kind of alluded to that, right? So that each family member has a chance to tell his or her story. And I think that's very important. I think too often when we're trying to help someone in a formal or informal session, I just find in general, we do too much talking. That it's very important for them to be able to express and process their grief. And as they're, when you talk to somebody at a funeral or whatever, I mean, they're saying the same thing 5 or 10 times, and then they're saying the same things in the next couple of weeks. And some people might get tired of it, but it's important for us in processing our grief. And when we're doing that, we're also dealing with it. We're reducing the emotions of the situation. It's becoming more real to us. There's a lot of things about that. Okay. So would you describe for me what the last 2 weeks have been like so that each family member has a chance to tell his or her story? Within that question, he often asks how each person heard the news. That's a good one. Casual debriefing. We've learned about debriefing.
How? You said how?
Mm-hmm. And describe his or her reaction. Okay. For question number 2, the author's next goal is to have each person tell his or her story, normalize for them what they are experiencing, and then educate them about grief and what to expect in the future. And I have this handout. It's included in this PDF, and I have it in paper copy in your packet. Crazy Feelings of Grief, which if we have time, we can read it over out loud at the end so that it's on the recording. So that they know, again, we talked about knowing what certain things they could expect in their loss. He would also want to find out their support system. This is something we didn't mention. As well as give some suggestions to eliminate pressure from other individuals. And I think when you're talking about grief, we can extend these things to other type of tragedies and loss situations, not just a death. And as we can acclimate it into our dealings with people. He would also want to find out what the support system, as well as some suggestions to eliminate pressure from other individuals. He also mentions that each of them may grieve in a way different and with different intensity, which we also talked about. That's all right, and it's not a sign that the person whose grief is less intense doesn't care. I want to make a mention of, we talked about, well, that's okay. But sometimes we could be saying okay as giving permission and validating some inappropriate response. So when we're talking about it's acceptable, we don't want.
That's the way they were thinking at the time, right?
Yeah.
I would never thought. That's why.
So there's some certain things about different words that we that we
Right.
say can have
Right.
other interpretations.
So
of
you're
words.
saying instead of saying it's okay, you'd be saying it's normal or like
Right. It's common.
it's common.
It's,
Yeah.
it's,
Instead of okay.
right, because
Because it
again,
could be bad.
right, you could be
Like
kicking
they're
the dog.
critiquing-
Oh, no. I
I mean,
it would though.
But we have to
Yeah.
give them that we understand why they're
So
angry.
it's not okay. I
It's
like
not,
that. Okay, I'm sorry.
no, it's not. This is a wrong thing. This is a learning experience. Because this whole idea to me was helping me
I agree.
and all of us develop the right language when we're, you know,
Right.
like we already know that a common is how you doing is not always, you know, how you're feeling. That's not a, you know, but how you're holding up is a lot.
I use that strategy all the time from the book,
Uh-huh.
whatever book that was in.
Yeah.
I use it all the time.
Okay. That's all right, and it's not a sign that the person whose grief is less intense doesn't care. He asks each person, how can your other family members support you at this time? And sometimes we do know, and sometimes we don't know. But that gives them thinking, what do we expect from the other ones? So for example, the mom might be all in your face, like, why aren't you doing this or doing that? Or you should be sad or whatever, reacting in a different way. And so it would be appropriate to say, get off my back, Mom. You know, moms have a tendency to
Yeah.
overshadow, okay? So how can your other family members support you at this time? And it may give you some ideas, well, what do I need? You know, so it's to help respect each other and what can we do or not do, all right? So question number 3, some of the questions directed toward the parents could be asked of the siblings. The author also lets everyone know that he would be willing to meet with each one individually. And some people may take them up on that, and some people would not. So one reason for this is that the deceased was described as a special gifted individual, but was she in the eyes of the siblings? Sometimes even in the initial session, he asks for a favorite memory from the siblings. Gold star there for whoever said that. Some may have a mixture of feelings. And I think when you have, sometimes we have relief about a death, and people feel guilty about that. Okay, so at some point he would ask the parents and siblings alike if there was any unfinished business or any issues between them and the deceased. So that's a good thing to get out in the open for them to deal with early on. Or if there was something they wish they could have said to her before she died. If so, he would suggest writing a detailed letter and reading it aloud at the place of internment. Or however they would want to express it. Okay, could be, they'd be private, they don't want to say it, they might be embarrassed. Okay. Any comments or observations up to this point? I think you guys are doing a great job.
I'm impressed.
Okay, the author number 4 wants each family member to believe there will be help for them during the months and years ahead of them. Okay, and a lot of times we don't realize or think that they might not realize that this is something that will stay with them for more than just a few weeks. Okay. Any suggestions or recommendations he makes are put into writing, such as the list of crazy feelings of grief and so on. Material on grief can be given with the suggestion to go over it when they are ready. He lets them know that it is normal not to remember what they have read at this time. Okay, so we talked about identifying other grievers or people that have lost. There are 2 other family members who are lost as well, the daughter's unborn baby and her mother-in-law. So not only are the parents losing a daughter, but they're losing their grandchild, which is and it sounds like it could be their first grandchild on both sides of the family, who knows. But the father-in-law is losing that, as well as his wife. The siblings' relationships with, as far as their feeling of an unborn child, they may or may not have a strong connection with that. Often, for example, when there's a miscarriage, different people have different ranges of response to that. Some people just go through it like it's nothing. So the children, the siblings may have been really involved in that and experienced a loss from the unborn baby. We don't know what the in-laws relationship is with the mother-in-law and the father-in-law. Okay, so it would be easy to ignore them and gloss over the loss. The author would ask about the baby and the mother-in-law, as well as the effect of the loss. So then they're also bringing that to light. They might not even realize that they are suffering in that area. A missing person at this time is the husband of the daughter who was killed. Who is ministering to him? For the parents, their loss is a grandchild, which is major. The possible other grievers to both baby and mother-in-law would include aunts, uncles, cousins, first responders, the truck driver, friends, co-workers, pastors, church members, the OBGYN, the husband's family, and a similar group of individuals from his side of the family. It's important to consider who will minister to all of them and how. Okay, obviously the author couldn't possibly expect to reach out to everybody, but he could give them their card, make themselves available. So, as we can too, we have a more limited amount of time because it's not our quote unquote full-time profession. And we might not have a good enough relationship with, we might be totally unknown and they don't want to talk to somebody that they don't even know. But it's important to consider who will minister to them. And we can help people find support that they're comfortable with. I mean, if one of those people in this family doesn't like me, well, I know it's impossible to consider, but I know, but we might not click, right? So, we can find other people that they're comfortable with, right? Okay. One of our tasks as counselors is to identify neglected grievers and reach out to them as well. Okay, the complication of this loss, not only was this a sudden death, but it was also a multiple tragedy involving someone's child, an unborn grandchild, as well as the mother-in-law, grandmother of the unborn child. The way in which the death notification was made could be a factor as well. So I didn't consider that either. I don't know if any of you guys did, but
Notification.
right, how they heard it, because he mentioned that we would ask how they heard about it.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so
I've heard that before, but I didn't.
it didn't come up in your brain this time when we were thinking about that. So we can't think about everything all the time, but the more often that we consider these things and go over them, the more that we can incorporate them.
The support system, I think, is really important too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we definitely need, there's different people I know that have gone to, there's grief support groups. In this material, the author does talk about different, to me, unknown grief material and grief support groups, but we can investigate, and I think we know some in our area, but you can look these up when we get through this, the material on the, you can look it up on your own time as it's needed to find out, how to refer anyone.
I would say go just kind of for his answer to 3. I did kind of think it was odd. I mean, he said he would ask the parents and siblings alike if there's any unfinished business, or something they wish to say. I feel like I don't know if I would do that because I feel like it's an individual thing. Like, especially if there's something unfinished or like something that they wish they would have said, that could be, I mean, I don't think I would do that, is all I guess I'm saying. Not that necessarily you couldn't offer it, but I don't know, I feel like I could kind of,
Are you saying you wouldn't ask or you wouldn't answer?
I definitely want to answer. But I'm saying, like, I feel like when they were talking about like individual sessions, I mean, I think that maybe bringing it up, that like, I feel like that could trigger, I don't know,
What do you mean trigger?
tension,
Uh,
you know?
well, yeah, I think,
Especially if the parents have a different point of view, you know what I mean? I can just see that being very interesting,
well, they may not,
especially in the first session.
they may not consider it. I mean, one of the things you're trying to do is bring awareness. So by saying that initially, early on, they may not think there's anything that they have underlying, but it's bringing the possibility out that there could be. You know, not everybody's relationship is hunky-dory, and, you know, but like for example, if the day before you had an argument with your sister and then she's killed, you know, so they
Yeah,
may,
I know, that's what I'm saying though, like, I think it's interesting that this is the first session and that they're asking this question in a family therapy. I just feel like, personally, I feel like that I'd caution on that, I don't know. Does anybody else have that? You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, like, first of all, it's so deep,
Personal.
it's so personal.
Yeah.
I might be willing to say it individually, but like, I don't think I would do it in a group setting. I think that I could say something like, a lot of times there's unfinished business that we have felt, you know what I mean? Like, sudden deaths, maybe we regret a way that we say something. I might state those to kind of get their idea, but I don't know if I would actually like
Individually say, what's your reason?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't individually ask them. I think if they were saying you would do it in a group, like,
Yeah.
you know, is there any whatever, but
Still,
I just feel
it's
like-
the group would still be an individual in
Yeah.
the group in this tragic situation.
well, I think it's,
Yeah.
I think in his perspective, it's important to address each person as an individual, even though it's a group setting.
Mhm.
And frankly, this may be the only time that he sees any of them. So they need to be aware.
I think that's why I
Even-
would do it more as a statement, I guess.
Okay, instead of a direct question, that's a possibility too. I don't think there's any right,
Page as you.
I don't think there's any
Yeah.
one correct answer. There might be some things that we learn are the less effective ways to act, but,
And depending on your interaction, it could totally depend on the family and what's going on in that moment. Like, everybody, you know, it might be having a session where people are just like really starting to open up.
Mhm.
Okay, well, and everybody's comfortable, but when it says that they were kind of all quiet or whatever, at least at the beginning of the session, I'm just saying to keep that in mind. Like, you need to feel that out in the moment. Of
Right.
like, how should I go about asking this? How should I go about saying this?
Right.
Versus just being like, so do you have any regrets? Like, I don't know. I just say, I feel like that would make me feel like tense if I did, and I see my parents like that, and then I feel like guilty for having this, you know, and then they're gonna look at me different, or whatever.
okay, well, that is a valid observation that we do need to be cognizant of the atmosphere, and at least whether you directed it individually, because it might be like an affront to them, but to generally say it and make sure that each one understands that you could have something, unfinished business, and they may at that time want to say something,
Right.
okay, but they may not. So bringing it up is probably a good thing. So I think we've reached the end of case number 1. Any comments or observations?
I just have one, Trish. This is
Sure.
Sharon.
Yeah.
I was in a Zoom meeting the other day, and it was talking about trauma-informed care, and they were talking about what kind of trauma each that you can go at, what level you can go at. And what they were talking about was acute trauma, and this is what you would call acute trauma. And that's one single accident or one single incident that happened that you would address. And then I do agree with your daughter about it was too much personal stuff on just that one visit. So I would actually pray and say, Lord, you know, how do I heal these people? What do I say? That's a lot of stuff packed into one session. And plant the seed of that builds trust. That's most important right there. The counselor or the coach has to plant the seed that builds trust. So each person individually can trust that person if they have to come back for individual counseling.
Okay.
I like that.
That sounds good. So I think it's good for us to pray always, and as Christians, we have that Holy Spirit that can give us a check or give us a go ahead, or you know what to do. So I thank everybody for their inputs and observations, and I think it's helpful for us to hear what other people have to say or how they would go about dealing with these situations. Okay? So are we ready to go on to the next case? All right. Okay, this one was a very interesting one. These are actual cases that this man dealt with. All right, actual cases, actual dialogues, and he obviously changed the names and some of the details, but he did have permission to publish them. Okay, case number 2. A 7-year-old child called the 911 dispatchers. Her words were articulate and now quite knowledgeable. She lived with her mother, who had passed out on the floor. The little girl described the symptoms and then said her mother wasn't breathing. The dispatcher heard the little girl go over and check the mother's pulse, and then over the phone heard the little girl give her CPR. Unfortunately, the mother died. The phone line was kept open, and the dispatcher heard the sheriff's deputy arrive and then pick up the little girl and hold her and talk to her for about 25 minutes. You have been called because your name and number were found on the kitchen counter. When you arrive, the sheriff brings the little girl, whom you've never met before, over to you. I never get this one, right? Okay, so any observations, any initial comments besides this is a tough one, right?
There's a lot of stuff in here.
Wow.
I'm wondering if your mom was a nurse.
I bet the 7-year-old is articulate and well knowledgeable, and she's passed.
Nobody wants to kind of get into it yet?
Well,
I guess we don't know enough about who the person is. Like, describe how you would introduce yourself to this child. Like, hi, my name is Karen. I'm your mother's friend, or I don't know who you would say you were. Like, if they found the number on the floor, obviously the mother knows the person.
I mean, you're right, that totally could be true, because I think she articulated.
Or was given the number as a reference user, right? But yeah, obviously it was, yeah, so Karen's right. So question number 1, we hadn't quite got there. Describe how you would introduce yourself to the child.
How would you introduce yourself?
How would you introduce yourself? Like,
Yeah.
how would you, who you would say you are?
Right, because they called you to come over because they found your number there.
Well, it's kind of assumed that the mother knew
Right.
Right.
knew me or the person, and So the first thing I would say, give her my name, and then I would tell her, I'm your mother's friend.
And I'm to help you.
Yeah. And it would be good to ask the child what their name is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Unless you already knew what the name is, because we're not quite sure about the relationship, but if it's us, we may or may not know the child's name. We
Right.
may be well acquainted with the child's name, but always finding the name out is very important, and addressing people by name too.
I think, you know, a 7-year-old, just thinking with kids and stuff, I think that one of the ways too would be to say like, I'm here to be with you, you know, versus saying, you could say help. I mean, I don't think it's a problem, but I think that just saying like help and maybe follow up with like just to be here with you, you know, versus saying like, you know, to take care of you or to like whatever, you know what I mean? Just kind of being there available so that they know that they can talk. You know what I mean? Or they could, don't put a definition on how you're going to help them. I guess what I'm saying, like, don't come in saying like, I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to help you process. Almost just kind of leaving it up to them with how they want to respond to you.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Okay, so that being with you, I think that's a good response, so that they don't feel like they're alone. Was someone going to say something? I guess not.
No.
I thought I heard a noise from the Zoom people. Okay, so we talked about describe how you would introduce yourself to this child, so that I'm your mom's friend, I'm here to be with you. Okay.
Yeah.
Describe what you believe this child experienced.
You mean like trauma-wise?
Yeah.
It's a multiple trauma.
Okay, multiple trauma. What elements do we see here?
Can you be a little more specific?
Details.
Possible suicide or death, possible, you know, there's a lot of things there. Tried to help her mom and she couldn't.
Right?
You know, that's
Well,
all.
you know, it seems,
Go ahead.
And I just said that's all trauma. Yeah.
Guilt, like guilt.
but it seems to me this child has had, almost, you get the feeling she had experience, because
Yeah.
she's 7 years old and she knows how to dial 911 and to even administer CPR to her mother. That's pretty amazing. So, you know, possibly the mother has had some kind of chronic illness or whatever that, you know, brought this about. So you almost feel like she maybe had experienced something like, she even knew how to take a pulse. That's pretty amazing for a 7-year-old.
Yeah. So yeah, a medical issue isn't something that we had previously considered, so that is a possibility too. Okay, so
Yeah.
So first of all, she saw her mom pass out, you know, and she, even though in her 7-year-old mind she knew that there wasn't a pulse, she might not realize that she was gone.
Right.
I can't really personally,
Well, shock, right? Like
okay, shock. I'm trying to think, I can't think of.
shock, guilt,
Despair.
Guilt, yeah, like maybe she didn't save her mother. You know, what a terrible thing for a child to.
Yeah.
And then she's got these strangers coming into her home.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't know if she's thinking this far ahead, but again, because I feel like this is a continual, this has happened before, she might be thinking, where am I going to be going? You know, like, okay, great, you know, because we wouldn't think that in the situation, but the first thing I thought of is like how you were thinking is more of somebody who maybe was a user or something like that. So, or even if it is a medical issue,
Yeah.
either way,
Yeah.
that means that somebody else had intervened to take care of her while the mom was out. So she could very well have been going, where am I gonna go?
She could have been with a relative, she could have
Right.
been in
Right.
foster care,
Mhm.
Yeah.
she could have been with a friend. And there's a disruption to her
Your life.
lifestyle, you know, just what she did every day.
Mhm.
Well, he's going to give us the answers.
So you haven't cheated yet?
Oh, I read this a long time ago, so I don't remember. I don't
Coming back
remember.
to you, isn't it?
It's not, hasn't come back to me at all. So I'm learning this just like you guys, because this is to help me as well as to help all of us, right? Okay, so what information do you need at this time? Okay, you're kind of a,
You're not a worker, like a.
To see like where, like, what would, so like, I wouldn't even know where to start. I mean, it's like, where would you go? What would you do? First, would you go to a neighbor to say, you know where she goes to school? Or I would be like, I don't know.
yeah, this is what I was saying when I was reading through these things, and I just didn't have the answers, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, these are possible situations that we could.
I guess the one thing that I would kind of go into is, you know, asking like, is it okay if I, you know, hug you, or is it okay if I give you a glass of water, or just kind of, that way you can kind of gauge what the needs of the child might be at that moment. You know, like if they're looking in shock, you can say like, you know, you look whatever, like startled or whatever. Is it okay if I put my arm on you, around you, or, you know, would a glass of water help, or something like that, to kind of just because it's kind of the hierarchy of needs, right? Like if your bodily needs aren't being met, you know, kind of building on that, and just kind of, yeah, trying to do that first, set those basic foundations, because a lot of times in those moments, like calming that their neurology, basically calming them to be able to kind of just ease them in would be a step in the right direction.
Like, have you had dinner? Are you hungry?
Yeah.
Right.
Is there somebody that you want me to call and come over?
Yeah, that's a really good, I think that's a good one.
Right. Knowing who the child feels comfortable with. And then you do have to find out other family information, because, you know, you have to have the appropriate permissible relationship to take charge of the child,
right,
whether it's a grandparent or whatever. So we do need some contact information, and we'll find out. Any other suggestions about what information you need at this time?
Allergies. She allergic to anything? I would be thinking that.
You might ask what happened. Okay.
Right. This is such a situation. You literally have to be in the moment, because I guess my thing is like if you're in shock, you want to try to
Keep them warm, get them hydrated.
Yeah. And there's also, I'm trying to think of it, there's a way, and she just went through the acute trauma thing, but there's something that you do in like acute trauma like that, like in that instance.
Instantaneous.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, we did this training. We did this when I did my chaplaincy. I cannot remember.
Apparently none of us can.
We literally talked about, yeah, they literally talk about,
Like if they want.
yeah, but you know,
stuff-
the reason I said I would ask is because I've had people tell me before, like,
Oh, yeah,
I don't
touch
want,
me.
you know,
Yeah.
Don't touch me.
Right.
but,
Like, is there a stuffed animal or something you might want?
is there anything that would make you feel more comfortable? Is there
I mean,
anything-
we may feel better, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
Eat or drink. That would make you feel better.
okay.
yeah, I don't know.
So number 4, what is your goal in working with this child? A safe situation.
Yeah, and give her the safety for her, what's happening.
Yeah, a safe and secure, immediate placement for her
Protection for her.
and helping
Feel
her.
secure and that, you know, we're gonna get through this together.
Yeah.
I would reassure her that everything's going to be okay.
Okay, well, how would you do that, Julie, if her mom's gone and she doesn't have any family?
I would ask her if I could hold her hands, and I would look at her body language to a little one is very reassuring, that they can feel that they're comfortable with you.
Because one of the things about saying things are going to be okay, and if it's not okay, then you've lied to her.
That's right.
Well, it's going to be okay in the sense that right now we're going to find you a place to go where you're going to be safe. Those, the words you say are going to mean a lot.
Right,
And
so
they're
that's
gonna
what I'm saying about the okay.
I think I would say something like kind of how Henry was saying, like, we'll get through this. We'll get through this. We'll take, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind
We're
of
gonna
like,
start something new. Let's figure something out together.
Okay, how about something like, I'm going to walk through this with you. I'm going to be going through this with you.
Yeah.
Something new.
yeah, I would say.
Okay. This is a tough one, and I hope we never have to deal with something like this, but people do. Okay. So we want the child to be secure and safe, and we want to make them comfortable in the initial,
Building rapport, I guess, would be the one. Like, just
right, because, finding someone that the child is comfortable with to help them feel secure and safe. Right, what questions might you ask? What questions might the child be wondering but not asking? And how would you bring these questions to the surface as well as answer them?
I kind of said it already, but I feel like one of them could be like, where will I go? Or who will take care of me? I
Okay,
didn't say anything about the dads, I don't know.
yeah, it doesn't sound like there is a dad around. It sounds like she's by herself. Okay.
Are you a good cook? She might be thinking, are you a good cook?
She might.
Something else. No, it's true. I put a little kid. You know where the bathroom is? That's what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, for a 7-year-old,
It could be all over the place.
it's gonna be all over the place.
But she could be wondering, like,
Where are they taking my mom?
she might not really know what that
They
is.
might not get that.
If she doesn't understand death, well, I don't know. It depends what she understands and what she doesn't understand in this that kind of a death situation. I don't know. Where are they
Right,
taking mom?
right. She could just be, if she's passed out before, she could just think she's unconscious and she's going to
Right, coming back.
the hospital and coming back. So she might not know that she's deceased. She might have a question about, well, what happens if you're dead? What's going to happen to me? So how would you probe to find out? Notice I used the probe word.
Yeah.
Yeah, see. I'm
Um,
proud of you, Trish.
I learned something, right?
I know.
So how would we bring that out, when with a child? I mean,
Well, at this
Julie
point,
and Elise is probably good with this.
It's good, Julie.
Elise says she doesn't have the answer, Julie. You're the other kid expert.
It depends. Each child's their own individual, so they all go through different experiences with death. Oh, I don't know.
I mean, I know.
Had a loss on that one.
is there anything I can find out for you?
Okay.
Because that would kind of, if I say, is there anything I can find out for you? And then they say, yeah, where am I going to go? Or,
Okay.
where's my mom? Where were they taking my mom? And that way you're not put in the place in that particular moment to have to respond. You can give a second to be like, let me find out. You know what
Right,
I mean?
'cause you
Kinda be that,
definitely-
like,
Because we already
liaison,
know
I
that you
guess.
don't want to just say, blend out, she's
No, you don't.
No,
gone.
Just say, do you have any questions for me? Ask the child, do you have any questions for me? What do you think?
Okay.
You know,
But what she said, is there any is there anything I can find out for you? That's
right.
a good. How are you feeling at this time?
Right.
Um,
Hungry.
okay, it seems like we're kind of blank here.
well, children are hard.
Absolutely.
They have multiple personalities, and each kid's different. So it's like they each have a different thought process and comfort level. You got to
Right.
feel them out sometimes, and I mean by meaning feeling them out, you got to have to check their body language,
Right.
how you answer those certain questions.
Right.
When do they feel secure and comfortable?
Yeah, I know that one time we were in a situation with some teenage relatives that, they weren't really talking. And so trying to converse with them, I was asking questions. And later on, I discovered that was like invasive.
Right.
And I'm trying to relate and, get them to talk and, try to whatever. And then later on, it was like, that didn't go over real well with them. It made them uncomfortable.
I think too, if it says like, how would you bring these service to the questions to the service? I think it's 89% of communication is body language. So if they're looking at something, right, trying to kind of follow that. Like, so if she's looking at her mom, you can kind of do certain things according to that. You know what I mean? So if she's looking at her mom, well, you're not going to be asking her like,
What's your
want
favorite color?
sandwich?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So kind of that kind of thing is being very
What's
intuitive to, okay, they're looking, they're doing, read their body language, like what Julie was saying.
Right, and like you said, if she was watching the medical personnel work with her mom, she might be wanting to know what they were doing. And so you could kind of say, pose a question. How do we pose a question?
And even how you actually said, like, and this is something that the whatever book that's from is, that, how are you holding up? That is it's not an invasive, specific question. It's just an overall open-ended question. But it's open-ended, not a yes or no.
I think always, tell me how you're feeling is always a good one. Tell me about what's going on is, depending on the age, the maturity of the thing, what's going on in your mind, how are you, okay. All right, the responses. And then we can be done with this one. Thank you, Jesus. Be sure to get down on the child's level. Aha.
Yeah, I would have done that.
Yeah.
Well, it's good for us to say that, right? Be sure to get down on the child's level or sit next to her on the couch. Ask her name and then say, my name is blank, and I came over to spend some time with you to see if I could help in any way. Tell me a little about you. That's good. This guy's got some experience. I'll take what he says, right?
I mean, all this is kind of like, wouldn't we already do that though? In my head, I would already have done that.
Well, we don't always think about getting down on their level.
Oh, well, that's just me, but I understand.
Or in that moment, you see, I mean, for example,
If I walked in as a stranger, I wouldn't go, okay, I'm sitting in the corner and watching.
well, not only that, you gotta think, this lady's still on the floor. So
I
you
know,
said that
I
person
know.
before?
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
you might be like, what do you, I mean, I'm thinking that through too, like,
Yeah.
those kind of things, right? could affect
Well, they
you.
called you. They might have already pulled her out.
I'm just saying,
And there's somebody, but wouldn't have left her alone, so somebody would still be there. Okay. Tell me a little about you. Okay.
20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Just being there, being present, and providing safety for the child is our task. The author might ask if she has a favorite stuffed toy she would like to hold. Okay, so something to make her feel comfortable.
Right.
And if so, send somebody to bring it to her. So that was something.
Oh,
Send
yeah,
somebody to bring it to her, so he doesn't get up and leave her and go into the bedroom to get it, and he doesn't send her to go get it. And yeah, ask for one of the medical people or whoever's there. No. People was there together, okay?
Probably was a great long.
Not bring over her because then if you're intimidating until you introduce you, came spend time with you, okay? See if I could help it anyway. So a couple things there is to get down. Sorry about that, Julie. The other computer timed out, and I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why it disconnected, and that was the one that does the sound, because usually this one has a vibrating thing to it and reverb, so that's why.
Okay. No problem.
Okay, but thank you for messaging, so now we know that everybody can still hear?
Now I can. It's
Now you can
perfect.
hear again? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear again.
Okay, well, unfortunately for everybody here, this speaker is not as good, so they might have to move closer here. Wait, to be able to hear what you guys are all saying. Let's see. All right. It never fails, right? We think we got I got all kinds of things settled about how to connect and how to hook up a speaker and how to hook up our stuff to the TV and get it to broadcast, and then there's another emergency that we have to navigate.
Always happens with technology.
I know. That's why you guys all need to come here, okay?
Well, my dad did well with his shot, so that's a good thing.
Okay. Please? Where's the book? I have it on my Kindle. Okay. All right, so we're talking about question 2, what has she been affected? And so it affects her processing, so she might not realize she's hungry. She could be cold. She could be not thinking clearly. When we get, like you got in a car accident and for weeks afterwards, it was hard for you to to get around, right? So there's okay. Hypersensitivity can actually become wired into your basic brain chemistry and bodily functions. Her body is out of sync. Her heart could be pounding. She could experience nausea, cramps. And these are things I didn't even think about. Sweating, headaches, and even muffled hearing. Emotionally, she's riding a roller coaster. She could become irritable, afraid, anxious, frustrated, angry, or simply numb. You may eventually expect extremes of behavior, either because of these processing things, over-responding or under-responding. Either way, her behavior may be off. She's probably slower in what she does. She wanders aimlessly and is dejected.
Wait, where are you? Sorry.
I'm on,
I'm free.
Page 2,
I'm right before, case 2,
down the third paragraph.
on question number 2,
Oh,
okay? These are all possibilities. So she could be dejected and difficulty remembering and could be hysterical, out of control, and hyper. It doesn't seem like she would be because of the cold, calculated way that she responded, but there are after effects.
yeah, but that's before the trauma.
That was before the trauma. I remember when I was a child, we were outside playing and we saw fire in a basement window. And so we responded and got somebody to take care of it. But afterwards, I had some of these physical kind of reactions, and other people were like, oh, well, you know. But yeah, you don't, there's after effects of the trauma that are also physical. So these are all possibilities. You may want to read the chapter Guidelines to Help Children in our book, Complete Guide to Crisis and Trauma Counseling, which we've used in our course. So I don't know if you had that book at all from before, but I have some copies I can show you if you're interested. I've used it, I was given a copy and then we went off to, and I used it in dealing, parts of it in dealing with youth because I was working with youth, and it's a good book. It's a good thing for your library. Okay. Question number 3. Any comments about what she could be experiencing?
Well, that's why I just had mentioned taking care of the physical response, because even stuff like that, it can cause like dry mouth and like everything like that.
Okay. All right.
And two, that, they have to express to the child that it's not their fault, that they don't have any guilt, that they couldn't do enough or didn't do enough. So.
Right. That's,
Point.
go ahead. Oh, good.
Point. That was your dream.
I'm glad you can hear, because this speaker, yeah, you can hear it. It's not as good as the other speaker. And I do have a connection from the other laptop to a Bluetooth. So when we're in a bigger room, but I couldn't get it reconnected, but we didn't need it because it's a smaller room and everybody can hear pretty well. All right. See, working on this all together is helpful for all of our responses, I think. Okay, number 3. There are a number of practical matters, such as caregiving for this child, as well as continued counseling in the weeks ahead. It's as though you have a dual role of interacting and helping the child, as well as making sure she's safe and taken care of in the future. Okay?
That's pretty good.
Now, considering it was such a weird one, it's highly, well, it's not highly unlikely, depending on your sphere of influence. It could be, in mine, I don't think I'd have very much likelihood of, but then I have people calling me, telling me somebody ran off and because they're angry and can I call their phone and stuff. So, I have different people that I deal with, right? Okay. Number 4, a counselor's goal. So this is what the author's goal was. And thankfully he's a professional and he's got many more cases. Yeah, many more than probably any of us have dealt with. So a counselor's goal is to provide support, comfort, and safety for the child. There are many questions you could use to help her at this time. When you ask these, it will be at your discretion. Good point. Somebody over there that said that. couple people said that. When children experience a crisis or trauma, it's important to help them feel free to speak their minds and to voluntarily tell you what happened. Never force or pressure them to tell you anything they are not yet willing to verbalize. Once they feel safe and comfortable, they may want to share with you what they went through. Here's a list of what you can say to support children. This is what I like, words to say, who are ready to tell their story. You need to talk in this manner. It's often helpful to talk about what happened. And we can use these with big people too. Talking about what happened can help you let go of painful thoughts and memories. Draw a picture of what's in your mind. Who would you like to spend time with now? That's a good one to find out support system. Write a story about what's in your mind. Thoughts cannot make bad things happen or prevent them from happening. I can handle whatever you would like to tell me. Your thoughts don't scare or worry me. I'm just getting a thing that there was a message. Oh, someone's telling me they have to sign off. Sorry that I'm interrupting here. I can handle whatever you would like to tell me. Your thoughts don't scare me or worry me. Anything you think about is normal for what you've been through. Okay, that's a good thing, a good wording. What you're thinking about is normal, so that we could have used that with those other siblings, right? Because it doesn't say the age of those siblings.
Right.
Okay, anything you think about is normal for what you've been through. Who would you like to tell your story to? So that's a good thing of finding their support people. Thinking frightening thoughts does not mean you are going crazy. What happened was crazy, but you are not. What do you think happened? What do you wonder about? What most concerned you? What's the most painful memory or moment? What was your first reaction? Which in the debriefing, what was your first reaction is a common thing. When you heard. Tell me about, when you heard. What's not being talked about? Are other people right or wrong about what they're saying happened? What was handled well? Who was helpful and why? All of your thoughts before, during, and after the event are normal. So obviously he wouldn't be saying all these things, but these are things that we can consider talking about. Any ideas or thoughts about these questions?
I really liked how he said one of the things, and he used the visual expression, but I like when he said what was handled well, because it helps them like reframe in their head in a very early on
Positive.
of a positive way of looking at it. So like when she said, what was handled well, and you can kind of reiterate, like you called 911, you did all these things. Because a lot of times in trauma, like you rewire your memory of like what happened, and so you only remember certain things. And so that's a good way to kind of get one of those things to be stuck, is kind of like,
Okay. Any other thoughts about these questions that he presents? Okay. Well, let's finish these questions and then we'll take a short break so if people have to go to the bathroom or I can get some coffee, and then we'll, after we finish them, then we can go on to the dialogues and we'll have our new stars. Okay. Okay, number 5, it's difficult to predict the child's questions, but here are some possibilities. Okay, did I cause my mommy's death? Isn't she just sleeping and will she wake up soon? What happens when someone dies? I keep hearing her breathe. When will that stop? What will happen to me now? Can I go where they're taking my mommy? What did I do wrong? Can I talk to my mommy if she's in heaven? Okay. 2 resources to take with you when you talk with children ages 3 to 9. Fears, Doubts, Blues, and Pouts by Gary Oliver and Norman Wright, and A Kid's Journey of Grief by Joanne Chung and Susan K. Beanie, for use over an extended period of time. Keep in mind that the 9/11 operator could be traumatized as well by this experience, because obviously she's hearing what's going on. So,
Not to do a thing.
right,
Yeah.
and knowing this child is by herself. 9/11 operators often have super stressful situations. So, is there any of your expertise that you guys want to share about this case before we take a short break?
Yeah, I couldn't figure out anything, but it sure made sense once we just talked about it.
Well, it's
I
important.
said
You know,
we couldn't figure, it was like, it was hard with the child, that's when.
Well, thank
Yeah.
God we have 7 lines.
Yeah, and it was, well, it was just the day of completion, the number of completions, so.
well, no, we actually had some. Oh no, that's me on there too. So I'm going to sign back into this computer so that you guys can both sit here and I'm just gonna.
We can't text each other if we get to one situations. What would you do right now?
I'm not going to go over the. I'm scrolling past the crazy feelings of grief. I'm going to scroll past this because I don't know if we're going to have time to go over that. I'm just putting this up on the screen. The thing that you would share with your clients or whatever. So that way, at the end we can talk. We can verbalize it. So I'm going to re-sign in on this computer and get some coffee and get ready for Phil and our counselor to come up and read our script with us. Okay?
Oh, is that the end?
Well, we'll be back in like 7 minutes, okay?
Okay. So I didn't realize how long.
Well, it's always hard.
It's almost.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I told Alex, my boyfriend,
My
like,
hands.
I'm not gonna be able to stay that much longer.
Okay, well, it's good that you're not talking, you're not doing this.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's why the
See,
Holy
that's-
Spirit
Yeah.
prepared. So I'm just saying, don't be distracted this morning.
Yeah.
Like I told him I'd be home like early.
Okay.
I'm good about it. Melissa says that she doesn't get emails, so I don't know if it's like.
Okay, I gotta turn this off because, yeah. That's why. But this will get taken out. All right. So I'm gonna get my coffee. You may depart and you will just can.
Yeah, I'm actually wondering if I should just leave now because I kind of, trying to think what will be least distracting.
You want coffee, Kathy?
I got one, I got it.
You got some?
Yeah. What's that?
Gotcha.
Three stirring cookies.
I brought
Do you want some cheese or something?
No, I brought both, I know, I brought it for both of us.
This little things are good. The cheese and the hot dog together. They're good.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did.
My knee. I just know we weren't allowed, I didn't go to the funeral when my dad died.
No?
And I didn't go to the funeral.
Were you not allowed to? Or you just
Yeah.
chose not to?
Well, no, I was 4. I didn't think I was chosen. I chose not to go, right? No. Well, actually, I was
Well,
almost.
I mean,
4.
we were
I was
given
almost 4.
options, so.
I was almost 4, but no. But it was like, no, they didn't. It was like, I don't know if the family didn't want me to go. I don't remember it. I just know that.
You weren't there for some
I wasn't
reason.
there, yeah. But it didn't bother me because I had already told him a week before he died, he was gonna die, so I already knew about it, so. it was okay.
Because he was ill?
No, no, he was fine. I just told him one day he was gonna die, he was gonna miss me. when he goes to heaven with baby Jesus. I'm gonna miss you when you go to heaven. And he's like, oh yeah, we're all gonna die, blah, 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 right?
Did you think in that time frame, or were you talking about?
No, I told him personally, and we were playing on the floor, and I told him that I'm really just gonna be sad that when he goes, he's gonna die, I won't see him anymore. But he's gonna be in heaven with baby Jesus, so he's gonna have good fun. That's what I kept telling him. And 7 days later, he died.
No,
And the day
people,
he died,
I
it was
really
like-
do listen to kids because I'm
Yeah.
telling you, kids do say some stuff and you're like,
Yeah, I really truly believe that the Holy Spirit protected me before he died for the trauma that I personally went through for the rest of my life. That's what my goal is, I totally believe it. I've heard people say that it could be because the devil was telling me that. And I'm like,
to me, though, it kind of sounds like
I
more of
think
a positive because
yeah,
the reason I say that is because why would Satan try to,
absolutely, for no reason whatsoever, and no mind.
well, it's a positive spin anyways, because with Jesus,
Yeah.
like, why would he
I
feel
was
like
so
he's going to
happy.
hell? Or, you know, something like, you know what I mean?
I was so
Like,
happy that he was gonna play with baby Jesus. He's gonna have so much
Right.
fun.
and
playing
the
with
enemy
baby
would
Jesus.
know, like.
Right, so I don't think the enemy
Yeah.
would tell me that, to tell that, but.
Yeah, I don't think so either. No, it's crazy what kids see. And everyone's like, they find out they aren't. Or like how even Carrie and Tommy, how Johnny said like he wanted a brother and a sister.
Right.
And like, and Johnny said like he wanted, you know. Kids are watching and like, and everyone's like, Johnny said like he wanted a brother and sister. Right.
I'm just going to ask Henry and Kathy to come in front of the room to be Phil and the counselor. And we have 2 chairs here so that you can be, I'll get out of your way, but I need to be there so I can scroll. So.
Do you want me here or over there?
Either one you want, doesn't matter.
I'll be right here.
Okay, so let's get you on there. Okay. Okay, we got Henry and
I don't,
you don't have a video.
that's fine.
Do you want
That's
the
good.
video
No,
up?
No, it's fine. I don't mind either way. That's fine.
All right, we're gonna,
I'm gonna read.
I'm gonna start the video. Okay,
Hey, Julie.
so now you get to see what I see all the time. Hey. So, we're already at the 2 hours, because sometimes people have to go, like Catherine already left, but that's okay. You know, I do have the video up from, the life coaching class, which is great. And, so I can get you that link so that you can, take a look at it on the YouTube channel. So right now, we're going to go over a transcript. It doesn't really look like we're going to have, I always plan for an extra half hour, but because we always need extra half hour, but I don't think we're going to have time to go over the crazy feelings of grief, but you can read that and make copies of it to give to people who you deal with that have experienced a loss. That's so what they know is normal. So, okay, so we're just going to go through this case, and I'm just going to ask, can you read that, or do you need your
Okay, read the
or do you
script
want
there.
this?
Either or.
I'm just asking. Which
Well,
one.
I mean, it's better, you know.
Yeah,
Bifocals.
just don't put it up to your face so we can see it.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
so,
I'm the counselor, so I go first. Haha.
right. As you read, keep asking yourself, what was the purpose of the counselor's response? There will be at the end his analysis, a very short analysis of the session with Phil and the counselor. Our counselor's name is
Kathy.
Kathy?
Kathy
Okay.
the counselor.
Kathy the counselor, okay. All right,
Okay.
Kathy, go
Okay,
ahead.
ready? Ready? Okay. Okay. Would you like to give me some information on the situation, Phil?
Sure. I'll give you some background. My nephew is a quadriplegic. He lives over in Oceanside, He broke his neck 16 years ago at the age of 18. Right after he graduated, he dove into water at Laguna Beach and hit a sandbar and broke his neck and can't move from his shoulders down. He has been suicidal lately, and I have offered to help him assist. Unfortunately, they told me he wouldn't talk to anybody, and neither could I get the parents to allow me to come over to talk with him. This is the difficult part. The parents wouldn't talk to me on the phone, but the mother did email me. She's my wife's sister. It's her son that broke his neck. He stopped eating, and this is his third time he has attempted to take his life. He's been insisting that his parents sign a piece of paper so that if he ends up in the hospital, it will allow him to take them, that he doesn't want a feeding tube or a respirator or anything. He's on a full-time respirator now, so he can't breathe without it. He's at home with his mom and dad, and they do have a nurse who comes every day for 12 hours. And then the mom and the dad take over after that when they come home from work. So I think it's more than they can handle at this point. My recommendation in an email was that they seek help either from a chaplain, from the police department or the fire department or whatever. I suspect this kind of help is needed at this point in time. I don't know how to get through to them because they won't let anyone talk to him.
Okay, so if you weren't able to talk to him, who would respond?
At this point, he's not responding to his parents and they're concerned, but I keep telling him, you don't know if he would respond to me. He might not be responding to you because he's angry with you because you won't grant his wish to take his life. I could find out what the extent of this is.
What's his name?
His name is Seth.
Phil, if you were able to go there and talk with Seth, what would you say? And how would you approach it?
Well, the first thing I would ask Seth, are you feeling hurt? I don't think he's been asked that because I do know some of the situations that brought this on is that one of the male nurses that he really liked and had a good relationship with just up and left. At this point in time is when he went downhill really fast.
So he probably feels abandoned.
Yes, I think that's true.
And when you talk with him, you're looking for an emotional hurt.
Yes.
Let's say that Seth doesn't say anything.
I expect he won't respond.
How would you respond if he doesn't say anything?
That's where I've been stumped.
What are the possibilities?
Well, I think that some possibilities might be bringing up, Seth, are you hurt because of losing? What are you hurt because of losing?
Losing the nurse.
Losing something.
So-and-so,
So
whatever.
losing so-and-so. It's
Losing
just losing
someone, Seth?
blank. So
I could see it would trigger a response out of him. He has 2 high school friends who have kept in touch with him, and they keep calling and calling, but he won't answer their calls and he won't talk to them. He put a blog on the computer that says, my parents won't allow me to commit suicide. Somebody, please help me. So he's crying out for help, and I'm not sure if he will accept the help. It seems like the parents are allowing him to get outside help. Outside help is what I think both the parents and he needs at this time.
would it be possible to say to him, I have noticed that you are crying out for help. You've asked for help in committing suicide and wanting your parents' help there. In what other ways can your parents help, or if anyone can help you, if suicide wasn't going to occur? And if you continue to be alive, what would make you feel better about you?
Well, it says, what would make living better for you?
Oh, I thought making, okay. Sorry, I'm making my mistake.
That's where I want to take the conversation. Find out what will make it better for him. If you stop and think, he's bedridden all the time and he needs help with everything. He does have a power chair that he can operate with his mouth. He has been able to get into the power chair and go out with the nurse besides him. He's nearly ran the power chair off a cliff. That's when the nurse reached over and powered it off, and then we're able to manually move it and make it away from the cliff and take him home. The nurse thought that maybe he wanted to get out and see the view, but when he started increasing the power, the nurse knew that there was more than a walk, taking a walk. The parents have threatened to commit him to a hospital. They use the term 5150. I'm not familiar with it. I guess that means they can exercise the right to have someone committed who is a danger to himself. The parents have also asked, would you like to go see your favorite doctor? And he hasn't responded. He hasn't had any fluids for about 3 days.
Phil, how would you handle it when you go talk to him? Let's assume you're going to go talk to him. How are you going to respond if he doesn't respond to you?
I'm going to let him know and let his parents know that he needs serious help. I'm going to recommend that the help needs to come from the outside the home.
Before you get to that point, are you going to continue to try to engage him?
Yes, continually. I have continued with the conversation with the mom and the dad, but I'm not getting anywhere with them. The biggest problem is that they are Jehovah's Witnesses and they know that I am a Christian. They do not want me to come over and talk about the Bible. I've made it perfectly clear that I won't do that, and I will only use the training I have received here, and from a sense of urgency of really wanting to help Seth more than anything else.
Let's say they give you permission and they understand you're not going to proselytize. How will you handle Seth's non-response to you? You'd like him to respond, but chances are he won't. How do you deal with the feelings you're experiencing with him, not saying anything?
I would probably relate to him the times I felt that kind of despair and let him know the feelings I've had.
Good.
I let him know the times that I have been suicidal in the past. I would let him know what helped me. Obviously, what helped me was different because I have the physical ability to get up and do things while he does not. So what helped me may not necessarily help him. I would start talking there and see if he might generate some response, watching his eyes to see if there's any response at all.
So you'd be telling your story. One other suggestion would be to take the pressure off of you and your heart and mind to give Seth permission not to say anything to you and not to respond, because what you're doing is not depending upon him starting to talk to you.
Right.
A positive part of this is that you have the opportunity to share. You don't know what's going to really penetrate. So maybe it's a matter of knowing ahead of time. Here are some things I'd like to leave with you, things that I'd like you to consider. I see this similar to ministering to a stroke victim in the hospital. When you continue to talk and pray and talk, read scripture, and with no response, months later, when they come out of it, they say, "Thank you for what you did."
I had that experience, unfortunately, with my daughter who died of cancer. Just before she died, I thought she was in a coma. And I spent the day talking with her and reading scriptures to her. I got to a specific scripture, and she said the name of Jesus that came out of the coma for it. She came out of the coma for a day or two. Then she died shortly after that. So I firmly believe they can hear when you are talking to them when they're in a coma. You just have to continue to talk and share. I keep her up to date as to what was going on with the rest of the family at that time, as well as some quiet time for herself and reading her scriptures.
It sounds like you've been going through a lot, quite a bit yourself.
Oh, a tad bit. Right after my daughter died, my wife and I had been with her in Boise, Idaho. We had been there for a month trying to take care of her and get things ready because we knew she was dying. The tough part was trying to get pain control. She had to have a spinal, and they put it in the wrong area to start with. The fluid ended up around her liver, and she finally got jaundice and bloated real bad. They continued to increase her fluid because the pain wasn't going away, but wasn't going to the right spot. When we finally saw the pain doctor, he saw it was in the wrong spot, put it in the correct area, and at this point in time, she was given too much, and although she was pain-free, she was completely paralyzed from the waist down. The doctor warned us that she would stop breathing because the medication might get up into her lungs. So my wife stayed up with her all night. We took turns staying awake with her. We were exhausted by the time we were able to get her into a hospice home. About 2 weeks after we got home, I had a heart attack and I had to have bypass surgery. My wife found a lump in her breast and she had breast cancer. So we went through quite a trauma during that time. I had complications and had to have my chest open 3 times in 30 hours. When I came out of it the 3rd time, my right lung was filled with water and I had pneumonia. I nearly didn't make it. My wife went through the trauma with me, and it was we had a long road ahead of us. And since then, I've had to redo my bypass surgery about 3 times. 3 years ago now. I have struggled with that, but God brought me through every time, and it used me in a mighty way as a result to minister to people. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm really praying that he will use me with Seth.
Does Seth know your whole story?
Yes.
I would encourage you to just keep trying to have an audience with Seth. You never know what you say and how will affect him. You indeed are a survivor.
Yes.
How can I best pray for you at this time?
That the opportunity opens up and that I can minister to Seth, or that he at least would start talking, taking some food and water, and that God would minister to his family and allow them to open up to an intervention if needed, and to help them, because I know that Seth's mom and dad are exhausted from all of this and they need help as well.
That might be another area of ministry, your ministry to his parents. I would also pray that there would be an opportunity for openness to the gospel, where Seth could hear something from Joni Erickson, Tada, and and what she has been through, and how through this experience lives have been changed throughout the world because of her wheelchair ministry. She has written an excellent chapter on suffering in the book, Suffering and the Sovereignty of God by John Piper. It's just amazing. Thank you for being so transparent with me.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Certainly.
Okay.
The end.
So before we talk about, you guys can have a seat if you like.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Applause for Yay!
I'd like to make up words.
Okay, so what did everybody think about this case?
It was a complicated case.
Wow.
I read the analysis already.
You read the analysis, then you can't say anything about, because you read the author's analysis. You know, when I first, was somebody saying something, Julie?
Nope, I didn't say anything.
Oh, there's just some noise coming out. When I first listened to it, you know, when you're just a friend or a relative helping out, you know, often you just kind of stumble around. So sometimes we can not actually help, you know, we're just kind of bumbling around and it doesn't do very much. But then as you were reading what the counselor was saying, then their input to give Phil some ideas what to do if he actually got through to talk to his nephew. So is there any kind of comments you would want to make about what you would say if you were Phil going to see the nephew, or what you would say to Phil as the counselor? I'll take either one from anybody that's interested in commenting.
This reminded me of the coaching class, because it was kind of like getting them to, they have the thoughts themselves, right? That's basically what the person did. They guided the conversation. The guy already had good ideas, and he kind of just helped reflect back what he was saying to him, or give him reassurance that he was like on the right track. So it reminded me a lot of the coaching skills.
Okay.
Counselors have to be quiet and listen.
Yeah. Oh, we
I would say
definitely.
encourage the parents to get, you know, more help. You know,
Well,
if
that's,
they can't do this on their own, you know, and it's like, you know, as a parent, you want to do that, but, you know, you're human. You need some kind of sleep. You need to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of them.
right, that's the first rule of caregiving, right? If you don't keep yourself healthy, you're not going to be able to take care of someone. So obviously, that's a secondary thing, because his sister and her husband, or well, I forgot the relationship, you know,
Rough road too.
they have a rough road. Then there's the conflict that he's a Christian and they're Jehovah's Witnesses.
Right.
But again, we always deal with the first issue first, right? The most acute. Stop the bleeding first and then address the other issues.
Right.
So he does have that conflict there, that they're not letting him in for whatever reason, whether they think they can do it themselves, whether they don't want people in their lives, whatever, because a lot of times as caregivers, we think, oh, you know, I don't need help, but you really do.
I think too, like, I think somewhere he mentioned something about that he would say that he would suggest help. And I think, like, as chaplains, one of the things that always stands out when people ask me to describe what a chaplain is a resource person. And so a lot of times they might not know like where to go to get extra help, you know, and kind of be that resource to offer, like, you know, maybe they don't want my help, you know, but hey, let me try to look up resources for you, like either in your neighborhood or whatever, to see if they'd be open.
Right, because there might be somebody else that they are more open to them coming in and giving them assistance.
Correct. Personality problems.
Right, sometimes family is too close.
Yes, that's right.
Any other thoughts before we go into the analysis? Okay. One thing I noticed is that the boy's nurse, that his a support person, yeah, which, you know, when you're losing that close relationship, that's a very difficult thing. And in his difficult, I mean, his life is pretty bleak, especially if you are a Jehovah's Witness, because there's not much afterlife you're looking to really, you know, he can't get out and do the Jehovah's Witness works. So, I mean, he's kind of limited, and then he's lost his probably main support person, his main confidant. So it's kind of difficult for him. So what does he have? So I did notice that. And then for those of you that don't know who Johnny Erickson Tata is, she is a Christian who had a diving accident when she was 17 years old and became a paraplegic. And she spent her life in a wheelchair, and a worldwide ministry, you know, dealing with suffering and coping and people in similar situations. So it's a good reference.
And also, I'm sorry, what that was giving Phil an extra opportunity for, like, spread his thought patterns to go read this or go read that. That would help him too.
Yeah.
Right? Compared to just, I'm a counselor, listen to me, I'm the best.
Yeah, to help him understand. So was this as helpful to you to hear this conversation and some of the wording of the counselor? Is there any wording of the counselor that made an impact on you? Not off the top of your head, or?
That's kind of what I said. What I said was just like how he kind of reiterated what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was like on the right track, you know, kind of like, yeah, good. You know, and then when he felt like there was something that he could maybe like add, that he would first affirm, yes, you're on the right track, and then kind of gave like an added.
Okay, so he kind of gently steered him away from
Maybe
less fruitful endeavors. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so is he ready to go into the analysis? It's very short, so it's not a big deal. And it is a big deal because he went through it and dealt with this person and probably did some follow-up too. Okay. This was a complicated work with Phil on structuring some type of plan to help Seth, which is important. You can't just, especially when you're not experienced, you need to have kind of an outline of what you need to address or do or say. Sometimes the counselee knows what to do, but just needs the guiding comments to sort through and gain direction. Some of the remarks from the counselor are actually teaching responses, but the emphasis here was helping Phil to figure out what to do. And I think that's true because our solution, what we would do, doesn't necessarily work best for the person that we're trying to guide. So they're more inclined to try what they have on the inside of them. They're more favorable to it, and it's personal for them. It's not foreign to them, not comfortable. Since Phil's focus was on Seth, we didn't explore Phil's losses or precious, it should be previous, suicidal intention. This session was more cognitive than emotional in nature. If you were to explore Phil's losses, you can identify based on what can you identify Phil's losses based on what he told the counselor? So let's, that might be a point of ministry to him in the future. So what kind of things did Phil go through?
Everything.
Yeah, a lot of times whole life.
A lot.
It's like, oh, the enemy's all over this guy.
Yeah, and he's still standing.
Yeah, it's kind of like, is your name Joe?
Yeah, so, and this was a real person too, you know, so
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that that person went through that he can draw from that people can't say, oh, you just don't understand what I'm going through.
Correct.
I mean, well, yeah, every tragedy that someone goes through is, we can't identify perfectly, but it's something that we can understand,
Correct.
you know, so you don't say, I know how you feel, because even if it's the same instance, we're not going to know exactly how they feel, but this is how I reacted, this is how I felt, and you might have some similar things. So if this young man did actually open up to his uncle, he could understand that, look at me, I got through, he knows my story. I went through this, I went through my daughter's loss, I went through this, cancers, and we had all this kind of stuff, and yet I'm here to talk about it today. And you can draw from the strength that I had to get through this. I'm here with you. You know, there is a way at the end of the tunnel. And I think that's one of the most important things that we can do as support people, is to provide some hope, because if you don't have hope, you're not going to be motivated to go ahead. So is there anything else?
I think one thing I would just add to is, you know, this is kind of for my therapy mindset, but still applicable with this kind of spinal cord injury. It means it was like a C3. So essentially, if he literally has no control of anything other than this.
That's it.
But there's still a lot, you know, quote unquote, a lot of things that he can do independently. And you gotta think too, like that means that anything bowel related, everything will be taken away from him. He has to do everything. He can't, that means he has a portable generator. That means that even for repositioning, he has to be moved. He can literally do nothing, but there are some things that he can do. And I think that encouraging him to find resources or whatever to encourage some of those independence, or even one of the things OTs do in particular is we train in how to communicate your needs and wants to people. And so one of the major issues with a physical thing like this is that people feel completely out of control. And you can actually empower them by having them use their words and communicating like, no, I don't like it when you do it like this. I want you to do it like this. You know, and so just kind of that's just one area where, you know, that's probably a lot of what he is saying, is that he's out of control. He has no ability to do anything that he wants to do, and helping him either find those things or hooking him up with somebody who has those resources that he can have some of that independence, and especially be able to advocate for himself, because he absolutely can advocate for himself. You know, so I think that's an important aspect.
Yeah.
You know, he has a purpose, even from the Christian standpoint of what is your purpose? You know, you have your purpose. You know what I'm saying? And like,
well, the one thing that's difficult in this particular case is that as a Jehovah's Witness, their purpose is not to glorify God. While as a Christian, we're here to be pleasing. You know, he's pleased with us, and we're.
But there, even aside from the Christian standpoint, which I know we often go there, but even from just a societal, is good works is still like a thing, and there's still things that he can do
to contribute
to the environment around him. You know what I mean? Like, so there are those kinds of things that he can impact other people's lives, but are those resources being
presented to him? He's not the option.
He's got to get out of the house for starters.
Yeah,
and
just not by a cliff.
Yeah, not by the cliff, like just the,
right. I think that this young man has some very valuable senses and properties that I would be very devastated to lose. Okay, he can think.
Right.
He can communicate. He can see. He has his 5 senses. He can. Well, he has 5 senses. Well, he does up from here. He has touch.
Yeah, but even even speech, his speech will be impaired. Like, he'll be able to speak. I'm just saying it takes a lot of effort.
Right. Okay, so his speech may be impaired, but he has the ability to communicate and to think and form thoughts and encourage. So I mean, when I look at what things that you can do, especially now with the internet. He
Right.
has mouth
Raise
controls
a pencil at the type,
for different ways to,
Voice to text,
right?
videos,
Right.
YouTube videos.
there's ways that he can communicate with people and encourage. There's also, he can, I mean, I like to learn. There's unlimited resources that he can absorb and enrich his life that other people that, you know, don't even think about. Well, they don't read, they don't, you know, they don't investigate this others because they have other outlets, you know. And so there is a possibility, there is you know, being very positive, there is a lot of wonderful things he can still experience, even though he's dependent on certain things. But yeah, making him know that he is not, you know.
You have to advocate for him and for him to advocate for himself.
Right,
Yes.
I think that's huge. a
Right, to
huge
know that-
component.
so. Too bad